Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome to Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 6.
Saison 6, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
And in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci
Thank you
d'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
In the land of low carbon, back to the SIBCA 2024. Hello, dear listeners. This is Esther on behalf of Anne-Charlotte. Welcome to this Comme d'Archi Sport format about the Salon de l'Immobilier Bas Carbone 2024. It took place from October 7th to 9th at the Carrousel du Louvre in Paris, France. The 2024 event is now in its third edition. In fact, autumn in France is a time of trade fairs where architecture is discussed from a variety of angles. Construction and technology at Batimat, then the low carbon commitment at SIBCA, materials and know-how at Architect at Work and Rendez-vous de la Matière, the territory at Salon des Mers, and finally, the great Parisian real estate show SIMI at the Palais des Congrès at Porte-Maillot. And I've just learned that a new trade show will be held from November 17th to 21st, 2024 at Porte de Versailles in Paris. This time, it's the Biodiversity and Ecological Engineering Show with a strong regional DNA. The event will bring together a wide range of professionals for whom biodiversity is a priority. But is this whole display of stands and the travel it entails really eco-friendly? Oops, I didn't say anything. All the more so as I abhor any dogmatic, ideological stance that dismisses the idea of otherness. Because every day we have to deal with this famous otherness. So, in these stormy times, I turned my attention to the SIBCA to try and understand whether the low-carbon commitment announced on paper by the real estate industry was more in the nature of an incantation than the sign of a genuine revolution. Florian and I set off arm in arm to the Carrousel du Louvre to glean information from exhibitors with varied profiles. Although, naturally, we focused on the brands and their low-carbon solutions present at the show. So, what's the real low-carbon vocation of this still young show? Here's a look back at the companies we interviewed on their stands, all dressed in wood, in order of discovery, with no real logic. Artelia, a major international independent design office, tells us that it has believed in the show from the outset. Considering himself a pioneer in this field, he appreciates the show's human scale, its values, and its ability to encourage constructive exchanges with other exhibitors, whether they be project owners or architects, few of whom have a stand, such as the Kobe Agency, which you know well from our latest podcasts, or François Pellegrin, or even materials manufacturers, who are fairly well represented. It's true that SIBCA, although on a human scale, represents 197 exhibitors and a flow of over 10,000 visitors, including 150 journalists, a 20% increase in attendance in 1 year. Not bad. It shows that the subject is a matter of concern. Feriel de Riche, director of SIBCA, tells us that the success of this year's event is based on the commitment of all stakeholders, investors, elected representatives, local authorities, to accelerate the deployment of low-carbon solutions at all levels. And Stanislas Potier, president of the BBCA Association, which initiated the show and whose work largely inspired the RE 2020 regulations, sums up. This third edition of SIBCA is a success. Despite the obvious crisis context, the year 2024 points to a global market trend towards the gradual installation of carbon management by most players. Everyone understands that this is a prerequisite for creating value. Well, even if we can't help thinking about the gap between words and entrepreneurial reality, the low-carbon prerequisite for entrepreneurship is indeed, and it seems to me, the right way, the way. Back to our exhibitors. First, Rector. Rector is a leader in low-carbon solutions for the building industry. A family business founded in 1953 that has become an industrial group with a family DNA, present throughout Europe, specializing in the prefabrication of elements, including wood concrete with very little cement. Olivier Laurence, the company's national prescription director, confirms that Rector comes to SIBCA in search of project managers. The show enables us to talk to them directly. This means that the technical solution in this case is envisaged without the architect. In fact, Olivier Laurence tells us that architects find it hard to get to grips with the subject of structural work. Yet, Patrick Rubin of Canal Architecture has already implemented their system, and François Pellegrin is working on it. Matisse, a major player in the French timber construction industry, who we've already talked about in podcast Season 4, Episode 13, with the WOA Architecture Studio, Matisse tells us that for them, this is one of the trade shows where you have to be present, as it enables a lot of contacts to be made. They also mention the Forum Bois, bien sûr, which takes place at the end of February. The Malvaux Group, France's leading manufacturers of decorative and technical wood panels for interior fittings, and a key player in prestige interior fittings for the boating, rail and mid-range and top-of-the-range hotel sectors, the Malvaux Group believes that SIBCA offers an effective opportunity for prospecting. This is their first SIBCA as an exhibitor. The first two shows they came as visitors. This year, they are presenting their low-carbon products, such as acoustic ceiling tiles. Rubner, a company specializing in wood from engineering to construction, has been exhibiting at SIBCA for 3 years. It belongs to an Italian group that works with Germany. Adrien Moine, project manager, tells us that they work a lot with Nordic wood, but are able to respond with French wood from time to time. SIBCA enables them to reach out more to real estate players. Cibois is a brand of the Millier Windows and Facades Group. Cibois manufactures wood frame walls and facades. At SIBCA, Cibois' main concern is to ensure that its know-how is clearly visible, and the show enables it to showcase its technical expertise. The company is SIBCA's main customer, and the show enables the two players to get closer together. Cibois manufactures new joinery, more specifically Mobix, which recycles and reuses joinery, i.e. 80% recycling and zero carbon. Quite frankly, bravo to the brand. What's more, the gentleman who welcomed us to the stand knows Comme d'Archi. Incredibly dynamic and open. L'Eco is based in Luxembourg, and the SIBCA has enabled it to make a name for itself on the French market. Its ATEX wood construction wall system is modular, lighter than CLT, for example, with load-dependent wood quantity management and an end-of-life scenario. The system integrates the insulation, which has the advantage of reducing thickness. The company is 7 years old and young, but on the stand you can immediately gauge its degree of professionalism and forward-looking, research-oriented spirit. The company relies on robotics and in-house software to optimize the use of materials, and its technical design office is fully integrated. And what about Ecoxia? Established in 2011, the company defines itself as a pioneer in the field of eco-construction and passive building. It builds all types of small buildings and has to its credit small ERP, establishments receiving the public, a leisure center, the first certified passive in France. It operates on a design-build basis. It is a general contractor with an integrated engineering office. It has some rare architectural references to its credit, such as the Karawitz house. It believes that SIBCA is anchored in its DNA and, according to its players, marks the generalization of low-carbon solutions. The show enables her to meet people looking for solutions and to increase the number of prospects. Groupe Thébault's well-known reference is the Métropole Parasol in Seville, Spain, designed by architect Jürgen Hermann Meyer. They started out as plywood specialists, but then they developed the daring Thébault LVL system. They assemble veneers obtained by continuously peeling logs. Today, they claim to offer the best-performing post and beam skeleton on the market, made from Auvergne fir in diameters not exploited by sawyers. They work with clients and contractors, and architects are happy to identify them on the SIBCA as a dynamic player in French production. Batilin offers insulation that insulates against the cold in winter, thanks to its low thermal conductivity, and protects against heat in summer, thanks to its high phase shifting capacity. Their product, the Batilin block, is also highly permeable to water vapor, thanks to the flax used to fulfill its role as a water regulator. All of these features provide occupants with genuine living comfort. In addition to its technical qualities, the block is a 100% French product, since it is produced in Hauts-de-France and comes from a local natural resource that is well established in the region. The use of flax as a raw material makes it possible to achieve a negative carbon footprint, they tell us. With Batilin, you store CO2. In 2024, they are at SIBCA for the first time with the low carbon target in mind. Architects come to see them, and they're confident about the development of their system beyond the crisis. Let's jump into another universe. Let's pay a voluntary visit to the Bouygues Immobilier stand. We were greeted by Caroline Lebé, purchasing manager for France, who told us that we can no longer build as we used to, and that, as property developers, they have a duty today not only to educate, but also to convey sustainability in a realistic way. The aim is to come up with lasting solutions that can adapt to climate change so that the properties put on the market are not only purchasable, but also sustainable. Here at SIBCA, they can identify new technologies, heat pump systems, mitigation, adaptation with vegetation, circular economy roadmaps are just some of the features mentioned. They even show a Kobe project built with Hoffman low-carbon concrete. I think to myself as I leave them that there's a world between them now and even just a few years ago. The progress seems enormous. It remains to be seen how many virtuous operations, out of how many traditional operations, will see the light of day. Another well-known brand with a long history in the market is Tarkett Floor Coverings. They're exhibiting for the first time at SIBCA, and on the second morning of the show, when we interview them, they're still struggling to gauge the return on their investment. Their concern is to produce their flooring in a virtuous cycle. So they've turned to the circular economy model and have already been rewarded by a number of recognized NGOs. Another world-famous brand with a bad reputation when it comes to decarbonization, steel giant ArcelorMittal. Having listened to Eric Long of the huge SEM agency when I interviewed him in San Francisco almost 2 years ago, I'm now convinced that there's something more to know about steel and decarbonization. There's no way this indispensable material, with its durability, flexibility, and recyclable DNA, can be kept out of the loop. In fact, team members on the stand confirm that they are there to talk about low-carbon steel. They acknowledge that there is a significant information gap on the subject. Yet, recycled steel is a real subject, as is hydrogen treatment. While the steel industry relies heavily on coke to fuel the blast furnaces that turn iron ore into steel, a process that emits large quantities of CO2, it is possible to create steel using a method called direct iron reduction, in which hydrogen reacts with iron ore without smelting, emitting water vapor but no CO2. Today, it is nuclear power that can provide the energy needed for this decarbonization. Political ecologists will obviously be up in arms, and most probably will be. But this technology is indispensable today, and since steel is indispensable, it will continue to develop. Let's move on to Ecosem, the independent European leader in low-carbon cements. They enter the alchemy of the project as slag specialists. They got involved in the wake of the Kyoto agreements. For them, being at SIBCA means being part of a virtuous construction cycle. Their ACT new generation low-carbon cement technology, they say, could reduce the cement industry's carbon footprint worldwide by 50% by 2030, without any significant increase in production costs, without any change in manufacturing processes, and by reducing energy and water consumption. Let's return to resolutely virtuous solutions with Manufacture Bois Paille, which acknowledges that SIBCA attracts qualified visitors. CEO Roger Garivier confirms, "If we had to keep one, it would be this show." They've been exhibiting there for 3 years, so they speak from experience. Manufacture Bois Paille, based in Villefranche-sur-Saône in the Rhône region, designs, manufactures, and sells wood frame walls insulated with straw bales and biosourced materials. Their references include the first Passiva House nursery in the Jura region and the Château Lafite wine tasting building. Steico insulates with wood fiber and are very involved in renovation. It's a bit early for them to say anything about the show. Our meeting with Profibre, a company joined by the Vendée-based agricultural cooperative SAVAC, was extremely interesting. Profibre's plants are located in Valeron in Vendée, a commune that opens onto the Breton marshlands. Dewi Lebegek, the company's sales manager, tells us that they process hemp, among other products, as well as straw. They create wood frame insulation products based on wheat straw and hemp. They believe they have every reason to be at SIBCA. Nothing could be more logical for them. Architects, design officers, project managers, they're all interested in what they're doing. Proof that farmers do more than just feed us, and that they are undoubtedly intelligent enough to find alternatives to European regulations that undermine their ancestral and primary vocation of feeding the population. This visit was a landmark one, as it highlighted the intelligence of local communities in the face of real estate giants. Last but not least, Hemp has used the show as an opportunity to forge links with the world of construction. They have developed a hemp block, a non-load-bearing bonded masonry product designed to create healthy, natural insulating envelopes, partitions, and backup walls. Here, we're talking about perspirance, 8-hour phase shifting, a response to temperature adjustment in the living space, 100% biosourced acoustics, and total fire resistance through lime treatment. This is the first time they have been exhibited at SIBCA. Well, I hope the few laymen listening to us didn't get too bored. I must admit that since I stopped teaching the history of construction, which I had taught for around 10 years at the ESTP and elsewhere, I had missed a good immersion in constructive systems. Through SIBCA, a new immersion, I find that this universe is changing in the right direction. I'm certain that new forms of building will emerge from these simple and healthy devices. I remain convinced that this impetus will give architects the opportunity to reconnect more intensely with their art of building, and even to rehabilitate their knowledge of how to build with the right dimensions, the right alchemies. Dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. See you next week for a new Comme d'Archi in English, and until then, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening.
And thanks to the sound engineer who was collaborating with us today.
Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.